Welcome to Mercy Volunteer Corps' live frequently asked questions. Today, MVC alumni Dottie and Skip will share about their experiences as folks who served with Mercy Volunteer Corps after their retirement. MVC accepts applicants 21 years of age and older, and usually most volunteers are in their 20s. However, we welcome and have had volunteers of different ages and at various stages of their lives to serve in both our year-long and summer placements. So welcome, Dottie and Skip. So happy to have you in this space, and was asking you to introduce yourselves. Where do you live now? Where did you serve when you were Mercy Volunteer? And maybe a little bit about the roles at your service sites.
All right. I'm Dottie Glover, and Skip and I are from Erie, Pennsylvania, and we served in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for a year, and at two different sites. I'm a former art teacher, a retired art teacher, and I served at Calcutta House, which it doesn't exist unfortunately anymore, but it was a residence for people living with AIDS and HIV. They had two residences, and I would be back and forth a little bit. I was the activities director, so we did different things in-house, and I got them tickets to go out to other events and went bowling once a week. I drove the van and that type of activity. So, Skip.
And I too am from Erie, Pennsylvania. I worked in accounting and human resources my entire life, but in the manufacturing environment. When we went to Philadelphia, I worked at Bethesda Project. It's basically a place that is serving the homeless and those recovering from addiction, mental illness, incarceration, homelessness, loneliness, war. And my job there was to help develop a human resources department.
Well, I know it's been a few years, but when you applied to MVC, you had both recently retired, you had adult children, you were active in your parish ministries, you were healthy empty nesters. So, could have like traveled the world, could have even maybe served a few hours at a local nonprofit. So maybe if you can share a little bit about what motivated you to apply to a year-long faith-based volunteer program like MVC.
Well, we had thought about it for a long time, through our marriage, actually. And when it occurred to us that we could retire rather early, 62, we could do that the first year. And then the more we thought about it, we thought if we didn't do it the first year, we would probably just get used to being retired in different routines, and it would never happen.
That was for sure. Really, it was our family, both of us. And then when we got married, we got involved in our church, and all our lives we had been doing stuff like this. So to fold into a year of service in another city wasn't that unfamiliar to us. So it's just the way we live.
It was scary because it was different, but we were ready.
So your children and friends, how did they respond to your decision? That was
an easy question to answer. All reactions were very, very, very positive. Much support from family, from friends, from our employers, and from our church family too.
That's great. That's because that's not always the case. Like, what are you doing? So to have that kind of like support and as you kind of move into this next phase of life was really something special, I'm sure.
We were lucky that way, really. We didn't have opposition.
Well, I know you referenced this about how you already espouse some of those values of MVC and civic compassionate service, social justice, community, spirituality, simplicity. I'm wondering what was especially meaningful about that commitment in your MVC year. I guess what was maybe different than what you had already been doing, which is what you referenced. Like this was just a part of who we are, and it was a growth of ourselves. And so was there something particularly meaningful in your MVC year about espousing those values?
Yeah, for nonprofit.
Yeah, for me, it was working among a community of marginalized people. I never was that close in Erie because I was working full time, and where I volunteered the most in a similar organization in Erie was all financial. So to actually get there and see it every day after day, that was very meaningful to me.
I think for both of us, because we weren't used to working in nonprofits. And like Skip had said too, the other staff people, really it was a passion. And I found that at Calcutta House as well. They weren't just there because it was a job, the people we worked with. They were there because it was a mission, and that was what they, that's why they were there. So.
And they loved what they were doing. In the case where I worked, they targeted, and there was about 150 employees, and they targeted a certain percent. I think it was like at least a third of them were to be previous residents from there. So they're pulling from people who had gone through the program to now work with within the program, and that was delightful, to tell you the truth. It was just fun, but also, as you said, meaningful to me a lot.
And there were
go ahead, Dottie.
There were adjustments, of course, and one of them is that we had lived in our own house for many, many years. So to live in a house with other people, to share the rooms, the bathrooms, the kitchen, the refrigerator, which at home you just kind of was very different. And living on a stipend wasn't the easiest thing, but we had always lived simply. I think.
We lived simply,
and I mean, it was an adjustment. It wasn't. It wasn't just like walk in and everything was perfect, but it certainly was worth it. And it didn't take us long to be adjusted.
No, you matched us up with a good team of people, and yes, they were younger than our kids, but they didn't act as kids, and we didn't act as parents. We both acted as friends and did stuff occasionally together and shared with each other.
We had a weekly sharing, spiritual, get together every week with these other volunteers who, like Skip said, they got to be our good friends, even though they were so young. But it was kind of fun to have really young friends. Also, our friends are our age,
All those relationships and the mutuality of that, I'm hearing like both that in your community experience of like, hey, we didn't have this like parent-child relationship, but we really met like from our own life experiences and came to be able to share from that. And then also it sounds like that was really just lifted up too in your service sites of being able to nurture relationships with one another, not only with the residents, but also the staff who happen to also at times kind of shift from their maybe utilizing the services to actually then providing that. So hearing a lot of like relational pieces there that were meaningful.
And then we developed somewhat close relationships with the people we worked with. And the building that I worked in, the main, my office, there were just 9 of us there. And so it wasn't a large group of people, and we did develop some good relationships there.
We also got to know other volunteers because of the orientation and different retreats that happened during the year. And most of them were younger. There were a few who are also retired, but we felt like we had so much experience, life experience.
Exactly.
And professional experience too, I guess, that we could bring that those other volunteers, some of them were just right out of college and weren't sure. They had more doubts about what they could offer, I think. And we knew we could offer something. We didn't know what exactly, but we probably felt a little more secure about having something to offer.
Can you share a little bit more about those gifts that, and being folks that were a bit more seasoned in life, and again, you talk about the professional experience, which I know, again, so many of our volunteers are right out of college and have maybe engaged in service or other opportunities and have experience, but like that big step into full-time service and what that looks like, that you'd been engaged in kind of the professional world for quite some time. So curious what kind of gifts you saw in being in your roles.
Because I was a teacher, should I take this? Okay. I was just used to being with a lot of different ages and classrooms for so many years. And so to meet the people at Calcutta House, it was different, of course. They were adults, they had aides, but I was used to meeting people wherever they were, I guess.
And what Bethesda Project needed at the time I signed up, they really needed to start a human resources department. And I had that. I mean, I have done that a good part of my life. I'd like to share one story with you though, and it was about one of the people that stayed with us, and she was very, very, very smart, and her focus in life was to become a doctor. And then she served at the Mercy Volunteer Corps. And did she work at the same place you did?
Okay.
Yeah, and worked there. And when she came out of it, she said to us, he says, all of a sudden I didn't want to be a doctor anymore because I wanted to be with the people. So she became a nurse. And as we talked about a little earlier with close relationships, we went to her wedding, and then another one of our members got married, and we were invited to her wedding. So it was when we look back at it, it was one of the best experiences in our life.
It was.
Yeah.
It was completely different from all our other, life experiences, but it was so worthwhile and so engaging and enriching, and we learned a lot too. It was educational, really, about nonprofits and how they work and how the poor live, and how people who, you'd see people sleeping on a sidewalk, and it wasn't something we would always see at home. And, we have a different view about,
Sure do.
And
working in a big city.
Yes.
Like Erie is the third or fourth largest in Pennsylvania, but it's not like Philadelphia.
Right.
I mean, that's big.
We enjoyed that.
We enjoyed that part a lot. It was
kept looking for free activities because of the stipend. We couldn't, there was a lot offered that we couldn't afford, but there was a lot that we could do. So
sometimes in those bigger cities, they do have a lot more things to kind of be able to enjoy. Oh.
When Dottie mentioned looking for free things, one of the things that we were invited to was a particular church asked us to speak at their church about our involvement in what we were doing, and we did. And afterwards, the priest said, well, come on out to breakfast with us too. There was a group of people. And in the course of the conversation, who was there? King Tut.
King Tut.
King Tut was at the museum.
Was at the art museum.
And we at one point said, we would like to go to see that, but it's out of our budget because we stuck to the
stipend, trying to keep everything.
We really did. So then when we went back and took him to the rectory, he handed us an envelope and he says, "Here's your tickets to the
King Tut."
To the King Tut.
So the priest gave us the money to go to King Tut.
Oh, what a gift!
It was sweet. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There were a lot of interesting things.
Yeah.
We did want to mention, I think, too, about our home. We did not sell our home. We rented it out for that year.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about
Well,
that?
we had a mortgage, we had utilities, and we had insurance.
Taxes.
So we rented it out and it was very successful, nice couple who was going to pharmacy school here in Erie, rented, no problems, came back and the house was in good condition. And
But that's something that a
Yeah.
retiree would need to think about too.
Yeah,
You know, how you can't just walk away from your house sometimes for a year and expect it to be okay. I think the insurance would have gone up.
and we did take a car to us, to the city,
So,
parked in the parking lot at the convent where I stayed for a year.
Not
And
everybody can say that, right?
That's
with
fun.
other women.
Right.
But we didn't use it much because the facilities that we worked at gave us transit tickets, which we used a lot in a,
Right,
in a
we
big
used-
city like that.
The transportation back and every day for work, you know, weekends.
And how was that to navigate that?
Interesting.
That was
too.
interesting. I used to walk about 2 blocks to catch a bus every morning, and I called them my bus buddies, and we developed a relationship between us. There was about 6
That's
of
so
us.
Skip, you know, I did not have buddies.
I had bus buddies. And there was about 6 of us, and there was it was a small community riding the bus to work every morning. So it was fun. It was work, and it was ministerial work, but it was also enjoyable work
Mhm.
and successful.
And there were challenges at your workplace too. But you know, it was so worthwhile. It's just, yeah. We would really encourage anybody who has the merest idea about thinking about doing this when they retire. Think of it, you know, look into it.
In fact, it was either you or Sister Michelle Shrek that said to me one time, and he said, Skip, this may be the lowest paying job you've ever had, but it might be the most meaningful too. And it was. It was the lowest paying, but definitely the most meaningful.
Well, anything else that you'd like to share with those who are discerning a year with MVC or a program like ours?
Well, there are many we found too that, you know, volunteer opportunities. And when we got home, we still had some reasons to have jobs. We had part-time jobs and volunteered when we got home for probably another 10 years, I think, after that. But, you know, that was just, we were able to do what we did when we did it. And I also want to re-emphasize that about sometimes if you do it right away, before you get into the whole, this is what retirement is all about. You know what I mean? It's maybe easier to do it sooner rather than later. Because there's a tendency to put things off. I mean, we have that tendency. I think a lot of people do. So, you know, someday we're going to do this.
Early.
Sometimes we'll, you know, yeah.
He mentioned too about a job coming back. When we came back from 62 to 65, we didn't have the Social Security benefits,
Right.
The medical part of it. So that's costly. So we did take the job for the 3 years to cover that in Erie. But then after that, I really enjoyed what I did for the next, because I worked 10 years, but it was a part-time job, about 15 to 20 hours a week, delivering auto parts. And that was just enjoyable.
A new community to join, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. He finds community everywhere.
Right, right.
Even we're in other communities at church and, you know, friends, but yeah, it was a wonderful thing. And every once in a while we still get in touch with the gals that we lived with, which is wonderful too.
You did, Mercy Volunteer Corps, and in particular you, Marie, and Sister Michelle Schreck did a wonderful job for us. You placed us in good spots, and I know that was the work of God too, but it worked. It worked good for us.
Oh, well, likewise, it's just such a gift to know both of you, and so delighted to be able to share in this conversation this afternoon, and you know, how it just is a fabric of your life, and how that has you know, kind of been woven in different ways in different stages. And I think that that's you know, a lot of what we see when we see maybe non-traditionally aged volunteers, of just how that at different times that those values of compassionate service and community, spirituality, like how that just manifests itself in different ways. And so, so grateful to have been a part of your journey in that. So thanks so much for all of your efforts in joining us today. I know that it was a little bit of a journey there. So appreciative of being able to share the afternoon with you. And also want to thank everyone else who tuned in for tuning in this afternoon. I want to mention that we're currently accepting applications for service beginning in August. So if you heard something that kind of piqued your interest, please take a visit on our website at mercyvolunteers.org. If you have any questions or would like to talk to a current Mercy volunteer or Skip and Dottie, you can reach out to us at recruitment@mercyvolunteers.org. So thanks again, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.